Well, you guys know what this is? This is my old baby. I haven't seen her for a little while here. I'm going to give you a full rundown of what's been going on and where we're at and all that. And with that, I'm gonna let you guess. Hey, sir, you got a second to stop over here, sir? I'll let you guess where we're at here because you ain't gonna be able to figure it out with the backdrop here. But I just want to say hi to my friend here. Stan?
Yeah.
Fred.
Yeah.
This is Fred.
Billy Bob.
Billy Bob down in Missouri. Yeah, that's what it is. What have you been doing to my car, Billy?
I've been cutting on it a little bit.
Yeah, he has been cutting on it.
Changing some parts.
I talked to him, I convinced him about a year and a half ago we were going to put the car in mothballs for a while. He said, bring that thing down here, I'll straighten a few things out. So brought it down to Larry Larson's here in Missouri, and one thing led to another. We did some things and lightened the car up a little bit, and I'll give you a full little tour here right now, but ultimately it's just really it's nice. It's just like the car's transitioning. We're not fixing anything, we're just transitioning it slowly as we progress down the road. We learn more about the car or learn about where we really want to be. So this guy did a lot, and Casey here is just well, Larry's been racing a lot, so it's probably mostly Casey been doing a shit. So did you even do anything at all?
No.
Okay.
Right paychecks.
So we're at Casey's Race Cars in Missouri down here, and I'm going to give you a tour. Here she is. It still looks like the same old thing. What we decided was we wanted to change the ride height in it, so we're going to move it up 24 inches. For some reason, I think it's going to work really good. So this is our new ride height. We got some 35-inch tires coming. We already got a 36 in the back. We're going to put it on air shocks, and that's how we're going to run it. We think we're onto something. And the boys down here in Missouri really think it's pretty cool because we can go off-roading and drag race at the same time. So, with that said, the biggest thing you're going to notice truly of the car is that not a lot of raw iron. For the last 3 years we've been changing things and welding on it and cutting on it, and there was a lot of raw chromoly on it, and now it's been powder coated. And it's a beautiful piece. We had it done here locally, and it's really nice. So what I want to do is I'll do a quick walk around, we'll just kind of grasp a little bit, and then we'll start diving into some of the things. As we go around this car, visually speaking with the video camera, you're going to notice is that this looks pretty clean. Originally it was made out of steel. This is titanium, so it's going to be left raw like this. The whole front part of this, it's outside the cage. This is titanium. Of course, by spec, we got steel back in the main firewall area. It's not titanium there. You're going to see a different dressing with this. We changed the floor pan to be underneath the cage on this because of aerodynamics. We felt it was better, so we flipped it, and instead of being on the top, now it's going to be underneath the bottom. Of course, it's not as sexy for a daily driver to have it like this, but for performance, it certainly is. The seats are a little bit different. We've always had carbon seats, but we kind of redid that. They were adjustable before. We kind of made it more of a stationary scenario. The bracketry was getting abused and used up, so we made it more functional. But inside this loop right here for the driver, this halo part of it, we widened it out a little bit to make it a little bit more comfortable. The other thing I mentioned, like the shaft now is titanium. We are going to change the dashboard out to a little lighter dashboard. We lost some weight on that. As I go through this, I'll point out some weight-saving things, but sometimes it's a multi-function, multi-choice to do it. The other dashboard was so beautiful and elegant, but it was heavy, and it really took a lot of time to remove it out of the car. So originally when the car was built, why would you ever want to remove the dashboard? So it wasn't one of our primary functions. The time how fast you get the dashboard in and out. Well, you know, and obviously I got to remind you, there's a full stereo system mounted in the thing. So now we found a little bit quicker way of taking the dashboard out. We found a little bit lighter one, and so that's going to be in there. As you go ahead and go around here with the camera this way, you're going to notice what we call the jewelry box back there. So that box right back there is where all the brains of the car are at, other than maybe the driver, but maybe sometimes they don't have any brains either. But so that's where everything's out. So we can actually Zeus that out of the car and take it into on an office desk and analyze anything we want with the car that could be functioning as far as hardware is, and take it. So that has that box, I changed it from aluminum box before. We changed the dimensions a little bit to accommodate some new features we're going to be putting inside it. Now it's a carbon made box, and one of the features you're going to see a whole new segment on that, and that's what we're going to be doing over the winter time, is doing some research and development as far as cylinder pressure. So a lot of manufacturers, of course, in-house, they do dyno work and cylinder pressure analyzation to get the engine to be happy, friendly. You know, OEMs are doing it for fuel consumption purposes probably, but race car drivers or race teams are after performance, and so are we. So we're going to be adding cylinder pressure to each cylinder in this car, and we'll be driving it real time with cylinder pressure analyzation in the car. So what we want to do first off is get to the dyno, see what the output's like, and as it relates to cylinder pressure, and it's going to be the ultimate tuning tool. So over the winter, for next little bit, we'll be in and out of the dyno. We'll be feeding you guys all that information. It's going to be super exciting, because I don't know of very many teams or people that have done cylinder pressure analyzation on a car that's got this kind of cylinder pressure, or engine I should say. You know, we're approaching 5,000 horsepower, maybe even possibly beyond that, and to have the hardware and the software to analyze something like that on a 10,000 RPM motor at 5,000 horsepower is pretty unique. So I think I've been told it's a little bit on the cutting edge. The sensors are unique, and a lot of this product is made overseas, and it's all going to be put together by Ben Strader at EFI University. One of the things that Larry spent a lot of time on this time was in the rear of the car, changing the whole back end. And if you pop over the top here real quickly, we moved the fire bottles around, CO2 stuff's getting moved around, and we redid a fuel cell so it can come in and out as a 1 unit piece. It wasn't removable before, it's just going to be a little bit quicker. Now we realize a couple slick ways of doing that. So maybe now if you pop underneath the car, you're going to notice some obviously that's the powder coating that's going to pop out right now. Some of this new structure, but you're probably not that familiar with it to realize what's different and what's not. But just kind of a few little changes in there, not to bore people with. But so it's still the same differential we were running. We're running the Marilot stuff, and it's a sheet metal deal. It's a big 11-inch thing, and we're really happy with that. We run the Sorceress center section, and we've been happy with that. The whole suspension really truly isn't changing in the back of the car much. We are going to try to, if you pan down here, we've been running the Penske's. I will do another segment on this, so if this gets chopped out. So we've been running the Penske's, and we never had them dynoed for a long time. We're just racing, and realized that once we sent them to Penske, some of the shims and their oil return needed to be changed, and we were actually running something that really didn't belong in the shock. And what had happened with the car was we were having a hard time tuning out the bunny hop on the hit. So there would be a rebound and a shock, and we're always working at that, how we're going to deal with that. So we're actually excited to get the Penske's back on there and see if we can level that off and get after a little bit more on the hit. We do have another set of shocks that we're going to try out. We've always owned them. It's called by Mensker, and we're going to see if Jamie Miller can help us with that and revalving and setting it up to go underneath it. So we're going to have a choice when it gets the suspension back the car to try both the Penske's and the Menskers and just see what the attitude is and what personality the car actually likes. If you pan back down again, you're going to see our 3-speed Lenko here. We've always used that. It's a great product, absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's been bulletproof for us, and a lot of people running transmissions haven't had a bulletproof scenario. This car has been bulletproof in the transmission scenario. With that said, if you want to look around, that Lenko is bolted up to that quick drive over there, and that's a titanium can. So it's a quick drive, as you recall, with a lockup, and that's the center part of this drive line. Well, what we're going to try out here is, because we just got to try it. We've been talking to Mark Mickey, and of course, you know, we've always ran Mark Mickey's product with his torque converter, and Mark has really done a great job with the transmission in what they call the 400 turbo scenario. It's a Reed case actually, but it's Mark's 400 turbo scenario. And we're going to try that out. We're going to try it in the car, because one of the things that's really attractive to us is the true weight savings between this scenario here, the Lenko and the quick drive combination, versus the 400 turbo. There's a weight savings. I'm not going to tell you how much it is. I'm going to let everybody else try to figure out, because I couldn't find that data, and now we weighed the difference and stuff. So it is a weight savings, and I think we're going to enjoy that. The 400 turbo for us might be a little bit friendlier, even not only racing, but it's less serviceable, so we got to be careful of that. The quick drive was beautiful for us. We could change scenarios, service it, do a lot of things. That's not going to happen. So it's going to be more of a, you know, sealed kind of a transmission. Here you go, and go race it. And we kind of like that appeal a little bit, especially as much street driving as we're going to be doing. So as we kind of move forward, Casey, would you mind? Can we flop the front and back over? So I'm going to stay on this side of the car. I'm going to let Casey open the hood and prop it back open, and they can just stay open now. It's always been a tilt hood, you understand, but these guys here came up with a little better way for us. 3 facets to it. The reason why we did change how it tilts. Number one, I've always been concerned about when you're racing, if something ever happened and there was like a fire or some reason that you had to get under the hood quickly, you always have to think about, you're probably not the one that's going to try to raise the hood sometimes, like a safety safari might be. So you got to think about what's the quickest way of getting the hood off the car. So they came up with this idea of how this car, where the whole hood could just slide off the car in a conventional manner. You see a lot of cars that have that capability, but yet still allow it to tilt. And then I could still add my electric screw actuator here, where I can still do it by a push of a button, open and close. So we have all the safety concerns addressed, because the hood is going to be removable like the Safety Safari is accustomed to, so that's been important. Number 2 is the function of it opening and closing, and number 3 is the weight of it. We're able to consolidate a lot of the product down here. Perhaps it's a lot of titanium, but there was a big steel plate underneath there, so we had some weight savings. As you stay right down in here, I'm going to point out how the titanium work. We made this front horn over here in titanium just to pick up a few pounds in the front. We did a little bit of suspension work here, shedding some weight. And then as we move forward, I'm just going to progress quickly here so we don't bore people. We used to run a belt drive pump, and the reason for that was I could always kick the belt off and change my fuel scenario between street gasoline to racing fuel. And now it's getting me a little bit more complicated. We do have and we'll go into a segment of how we're going to go ahead and change between tanks and fuels for street driving versus racing. But now we are running a cam-driven fuel pump. The reason why we can do that is we hired RCD to do research and development to build us a gear drive for front of this motor. As you recall, this is a pretty unique motor. There's not very many of them out there, and so there's no gear drive available. So everything is a bastard on this thing, meaning that the gear drive, it took over a year to design and build, and so now we're running a gear drive in this car. We can always go back to belt drive, but hopefully the gear drive is a little bit more robust, and we're going to enjoy that. So that gave us the flexibility to go ahead and do a gear-driven fuel pump. So that's one thing that a lot of you Sorceress people that follow us intimately are going to see a huge difference right here. So a lot of things been cleaned up because you don't have to run another belt. So still see the larger alternator down in here. As you kind of move this way, you're going to still see some more titanium treatments, a lot of tie bracketry, tying this whole thing in, and that's where we're just kind of wrapping up. It's just a second generation. I think anytime somebody has an opportunity to do the second time around, you get better at it. If it's baking a cake or whatever it would be. So in this instance right here, we're baking another cake, and it's probably going to taste better. Now you can see how the car or the hood can be removed. That'll come off a lot easier once you shake the tires one time. Loosen it up a little bit.
It's just barely touching on something down there, but it'll have two quick pins in there holding that from,
so it can't slide forward.
So it'll pivot,
Yep.
and then you won't put the quick pins in it when you put it on and Zeus it on when you're racing. So
You're going to actually be able to see. You're actually going to see that better than what we had. Yes, because it was moved over that way more, and it's more of the top of the steering was where the business was going on. So originally, when Larry and I met in St. Louis approximately 3 years ago, we had discovered that the car was inconsistent, and we figured out there's some ways that we can make it better. And you could always make things better. It's just, what are you going to attack first? And we thought that maybe we wanted to address and try to stiffen up the chassis where the 4-link bars were introduced to the chassis back there. So I offered, when we were talking in the pits that day, I offered ideas if you'd be interested in working on my hot rod and helping us with that, and he said he sure would. And since then we got a super strong friendship now, and he's a great guy, and we just made things better. The car's original intention was, when we were building it with Don Spear, was like, we wanted to make sure that we had a fun, streetable car that we could take to events, run 6 seconds, run 200 miles an hour. Is a pretty cool car, you know. Our own design, our own deal. We didn't want to go out and buy nothing. We didn't want to buy somebody's motor package. We didn't want to buy somebody's chassis. We didn't want to buy somebody's body. So it took a long time. So doing that, the intention wasn't to have a race car that was super serviceable, super lightweight, super unfriendly, no creature comforts, no good etiquette. So doing that, you stay focused in that whole realm. You're not concerned about, oh wow, if someday this car can make 5,000 horsepower, I wonder if this bracket's strong enough. So to reintroduce people here, that's how Larry and I got. And we thought, well, if we're going to continue on with this upward climb with this car going quicker and faster, we really should address some of this 4-link stuff, and that's where Larry got started. So truthfully, that's what I meant to say. So in doing that, that was our first time with Larry. He came in there, and we've seen some places where he can strengthen the 4-link scenario. So we did that, and it was mostly in the center part of the car, and we call like the center section out of it. So we did some stuff down there. We did some X-bracing, straightened up some bars, added some strength to things, and things got better. We added a little bit more roll bar to it, and it was immediate response. We felt it immediately. It was spot on. So we ran the car shortly for that. Matter of fact, we set the American fastest record with that in Martin, Michigan, with those changes. And if you all recall back, that would have been at least 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. We were running that day, and it was so responsive that we went, I think it was like, we're in the 580s. I think we got down like a 585 there. And each increment we're moving like a lot. And then it was the funnest day, because all you're doing nowadays is, instead of taking pills out and changing your pills in your carburetor, it's like we ran over to the laptop, cooled the motor down. It's like, oh, hold on a second, wait until y'all watch, wait until you see this. And we did that, and we were going back for another good run, and a smart increment, because we had all the ingredients, everything was working good, nothing was out of character, and we're just like, we were basically about ready to punch another ticket, is what we thought. And as soon as I think the car shifted the first gear, shifted into second, on the first shift, I think we wiped the pinion right off the gear set. And if you guys want to pan over this way, that was out of this rear end here. Not that it's a bad product, but it was this modular floater from Strange. Larry, do you remember, was that a true 10-inch gear set in this thing then? Yes, sir. So we had a true 10-inch gear set in it, all the good stuff. You can see that, of course, because it's kind of like a pro mod. We got the carbon ceramic brakes on here, and that was a rear end that we actually broke. The third member is probably around here somewhere, and what it did was it robbed us from us punching another ticket. So we ran like 260 some miles an hour at 585, and we're gonna go right for the 570 stuff. And it took it, so what happened when that gear broke, the motor seen no load, and of course sometimes when that's valid enough, you better check your transmission. Sure enough, it took a transmission out, and it hurt the motor, because the motor sat there in the rev limiter and you just can't get out of it quick enough. So literally we went from having the most fun you could ever have as a hot rodder, it's like, oh my god, this is the moment we wait for, we can just make this one next better, to instantly like one of the worst moments, because we literally ruined the entire driveline of that car in Martin, Michigan at that run, because the rear end was out, hurt the transmission, and hurt the motor. So just because we happen to have a big hauler, we walked in the hauler and said, oh, look at this, here's another third member, cool, all right, how about a transmission? Oh, we have another transmission, so do that. Oh, do we have another spare motor? Yes, we do. So we spent that whole night in Martin, Michigan, threw another set of the whole driveline, changed it all out. We went back the next day, and I don't remember, some kind of a hiccup or whatever, but we were robbed of another good run. So that's how the story goes. So since then, Larry and I once again wanted to revisit the car, and felt that the next step we should do is probably address some of the things in the front of the car. So Larry took some time. We actually scheduled a time to come back in here And Larry looked at it, we thought, okay, we could do some things up in the front strut area that would allow us to transfer the weight and have a little bit more control. So we felt that we should readdress that and then look at some other things we can make it more of a race car. So back originally, this car had air filters. We filtered the air through the front bumper. It's a street car. The exhaust always exited out back in front of the front tire. A full exhaust system, and that was the whole part of that. So in doing all that, things get a little bit more cumbersome and really complicated to work on it, because the air ducts are in the way, the air filters are in the way, the mufflers are in the way, and it adds a lot of weight. Another thing that happens that people might not know is, when it comes to mind, is with having the side exit exhaust, we don't enjoy the benefits of having a bullhorn on this like a lot of turbo cars for downforce. So what we wanted to do is pop a hole in the hood. Now it's going to look like a race car. And I thought, well, there's a way we can do this. We can still race it and still put it in the street. So I said, well, I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to make it universal. So I'm going to make it so that I can still run the bullhorn and then still put my street exhaust on there. And that's the way it is today. So when you do see the car driving the street, it does have that exhaust on it with the muffler in it, and it's exiting on the side like it should. It doesn't have a big old exhaust sticking out the side. And I think that's what truly a street car should be like, not a race car. Certainly not with zoomies. So, but one thing now we have walked away from is the air ducts. They're beautiful. We spent a lot of energy on it. Don had to create that where the air was introduced from the front bumper through the front suspension and into the turbocharger, and it was filtered. A lot of time went into that, and it's just mothballed now. So now with the new suspension and front struts on there, it's actually antiquated and it's gone. It's not even a usable piece other than just a dust collector now. So doing that, you had to make a decision. That's one of the first things when we did the car. Building a race car is cool. A lot of people do it. We just wanted to have a fast street car, and that was a hard decision. So now we just run a little smaller air filter if we do drive on the street right in front of the turbocharger. Nothing cool, not introduced way out front, so that's all been gone. So doing that, Larry front half the car is what we call it, completely did it, and we reaped the benefits of it. We shed a little bit of the weight out of the car, made it more serviceable, so now we're actually working on it like a race car, and we can change things out. So fast forward to now. This is our third time with Larry. He came back in here and said, listen, it's probably time that we go and make the rear end of the car more serviceable with the fuel cell going in and out, because as you recall, the Sorceress, there's 2 fuel tanks. We drive on the street. We used to carry about 26 gallons in the rear and about 4.5 in the front. And it was not, let me see, it was not quick enough. It was serviceable, but it was not quick enough for us to change back and forth street mode, race mode. Taking the tank in, putting it out, all that stuff. And we used to carry fire bottles back there. We have CO2 back there to shift, and the launch system for the parachutes, line lock, all that stuff. Well, not line lock, but the lock up and stuff. So with all that, we talked about it for long and hard, and I said, Larry, it's time. There's some bruises on the car. Would you have time to, if I could drop it off and just heal up a few bruises? And throughout these renditions, the first 2, each time we put new steel in this thing, we never bothered to paint it or powder coat it. So she's looking a little bit scabby and rough, like a typical race car can. And it was time to say, hey, let's go slow. I wanted to spend some time with the family anyway, so we took a whole year or 2 off here. And it's been just sitting here in Larry's, and he hasn't worked on it the whole time. He's been racing. And when he's got time on, he spends some energy on him and Casey down here. They put a lot of good ideas and a lot of thought in this. So now the last rendition is get it all powder coated. Let's work with some other smaller detail things, like where the door's at and the jams, because changing these exhausts around, changing where the turbos are mounted, how they're mounted, larger turbochargers, how are you going to hold on to them? A lot of different changes like that, that when you do those things, they create their own little detail to, attention to detail, where you just can't take I don't know, originally I think there's probably 88 millimeter turbochargers on this, if I remember. I don't even remember now. Maybe 92s. I think it was 92s actually. And going all the way up to like 110 millimeters or 114s now. So everything changed. The manufacturer, we started with Precision Turbo, and now we're using the Hartz product, and really excited about the Harts product. So we moved some things around to make it better. We changed headers was another thing. Larry built some headers here that before they were a little bit more street friendly, not serviceable, where you could get in and work on your spark plugs if you want to change a spark plug. So we certainly wanted to do that. We wanted to rearrange them so that maybe the spool time would be changed. A lot of different things. We felt like performance, we could get advantage in performance by changing the exhaust like that with the headers. So that was one of the other things that Larry did in one of these renditions throughout this. So doing that, you realize as you proceed, you're going to have all this whole menu of things that if you could really go back and say, okay, originally if that's what I wanted to do, we would have done it, but that wasn't the original intention. The original intention of the car was built perfect the way we wanted it. It was a masterpiece. It's a different car now. It's just a different, it's the same car, it's just that we keep massaging and things and changing it. Now we realize that, hey, now we're chasing world records, and that's what we think is important to us, and still be able to drive it to the track and race. And with that said, that will be our intentions next year. Take it to different cities, unload it, and drive it to each city, spend a little time with it, and drive it to the track and race head to head. Not necessarily for a slip, even though we'll be at a track and we will be getting slips, but I think it's going to be more fun for us to be side-by-side heads-up racing with other people. The by runs by yourself, going for times, really isn't that exciting for us unless we're going for a world record. So when we go on this, we want to do heads-up racing. So that's what my fun thing is about it. I will be doing a cross-country drive with it, probably this year, somewhere along the line, where I just hop in the car and drive it across the country, then go race. Or vice versa, race it and then go home with it across country. So this is pretty cool. What we're doing is, this is our new tailpipe. It's the new 8x4 inch oval. It's for more ground clearance underneath here. And so we just mount it here in the front and back. We can pull the pins on it. Or then we can use it we can put it like in the middle of the car, put our drive shaft down the middle of it, and call it a drive shaft safety loop. So Larry has this box over there, that brown box over on top there. It looks like a cardboard box, but it's actually a 3D printer. He sticks this shit in here, he draws a picture, and it prints out this titanium shit. It's pretty cool, huh? I mean, I honestly, I'd take my time with this. Just look how nice that is. This is what saves you. So we started out with chromoly. We have been running a carbon shaft in this, and I guess if the carbon shaft goes, it releases quicker and easier than maybe the chromoly. Might want to hold on to it and be a little bit more, from what I understand. So we want to make this long enough that if there's any type of shrapnel, hopefully we're grabbing a hold of it, and hopefully it actually never happens. But once again, a car that's a little heavier than a typical race car, a car that's building more torque than a typical race car, we're doing things that other people haven't really done. And we just got to make sure that we're covered to go to the next step, you know. And maybe that's a whole new subject. What is the next step? Is after we're dynoing and starting to go to the track, do a little bit of testing. But we think that with the engine improvements that Ben Strader at EFI University has done with his Spintron testing, and then taking the time, a year and a half, to have some custom products made for the rocker arm stands and the rocker arms and the valve train, and Billy Godbold with the camshaft design and profile. We've tested all these products. We just sit and re-engineer it and take the data and build something, but we took what we thought was the good ingredients, had it made, and then we tested it, and it's tested that at least on a Spintron will spin up, and it looks really cool and sounds good. Going to the dyno is really the real world. Well, strike that. The track is the real world, but going to the dyno is going to be our next level of saying, hey, is this going to work or not? So there's just a lot of little things that we've done with this, and so I know we all have been anxiously waiting to get all this information. So we're going to chop it up in videos that are easy to swallow and watch, and that's what James is good at. So I'm glad you're here in Missouri, James, and you and April are here, and you guys have always done a good job for us. And James and April were the ones that did that video when I was driving down the street in Vegas, and he's got a good keen eye for stuff, so he's going to capture a lot of things here that I'm not even talking about, I'm sure. But this right here is the next coolest thing here. So we were talking about the dashboard, how heavy and cumbersome it was to remove. Now it's just a little wing nut or Zeus of some sort. It's actually a wing nut Zeus on each side, and this whole thing releases. It's caught in a pocket right here. We're working on that, and this whole thing will come out. The stereo won't be mounted typically in this right now. We're going to mount it somewhere else so we can have the functionality of having our stereo system. We have a full stereo system, of course, and that's important because when we drive it up the staging lanes, we got to entertain everybody else that's there, standing there with their 9-person entourage to try to get their car started. And we love just to turn the stereo down and push the button, start it up, drive up to the staging lanes and beat their asses is what's kind of fun. Run 570s and 270 miles an hour. And well, that's our goal anyway, so see if it happens. Well, now it doesn't look like a street car anymore. When we had this thing powder coated, Larry and I talked about what is the right color for it. It was really similar to what we had before, but it's like if you look at it really closely, it's got a metal flake to the powder coat, and it's got like a little clear shine to it. And we like that for two purposes. Number one, I want to hide the cage, so when you're looking in the car, it doesn't look like so much a race car. It's more of a street car, so it's not like in your face, like as if we were to do this in bright red, if you will. So we wanted to blend in, number one. Number two, we wanted to make it smooth and shiny so it's cleanable. Now you're going to be able to see some more things. You know, obviously everybody knows that carbon fiber is a real important thing. You're going to see a lot of that in the car, so I don't need to really talk about that so much. Originally when the car was built, it was important because all electronics in it, that we had 2 full-size batteries with a battery switch back here, and then of course you got your kill switch. And so originally it was really important for us to be able to run the stereo all day long without the batteries going dead, or at least the capability of selecting what battery you'd want to do, play with one battery, switch to the other one to start it up and leave. So now as we progress, we're finding out that's just as important for us just to race, and we can charge a battery when we go someplace and we'll make it do. So we put a larger alternator on it to do it that way, and then we're only going to use one battery, and we relocated the battery right up by the starter now, and we've gone to a smaller battery technology, and we've gotten rid of it. So that's like one of the weight saving things that we changed. So doing that, you lose weight, and you, well, just think about the batteries with the amperage loss between here and where the starter's at. So, and then all the battery cables going back and forth, you got to go from the batteries, join them together, run it up there, come back to the master switch, come back and back. You got all these cables back and forth. So it's a huge weight savings, and it's an important thing. So you notice it's gone. Some CO2 stuff will be back here. We have to have 2 fire bottles because of the class that we end up running in, and when they let us run it. And what that is, actually, we do have to find events. NHRA's been really gracious. They've always put a match race together for us, whatever we wanted to do. We can bring it to them, the idea. As you recall, about a month ago, we talked about it at SEMA. I was on the stage up there, and we've been invited to some tracks, and we're gonna see what we can do for a match race. If you guys got some ideas, and you know somebody personally would like to do that, we'd love to do that. And it doesn't have to be a street car. We'll race a full mod, pro mod. You know, understanding that when it's a heads up thing, it's just whatever you brung. You know, run what you brung kind of thing, and we're open for that because we're going to bring a lot of heat when we get to the track. I'll tell you that. Now you can start seeing some of the titanium work here. The carbon seats. So the carbon seats are married to the bracket scenario. So when you take the seat out, the seat stays with the brackets, and you got 4 pins, and that comes out as an assembly. So here you go. There's a little battery, and that's where it's sitting for home. Maybe if you're going to be 6'8" and riding this for a ride, you might have to scrunch your knees up because we're utilizing that foot space now for the battery, because it's just so smart with all the electronics in this. Everything in this is modular, so each harness has got its own specific duty, and then we digitally log what that harness is and when we test it. So anywhere we race, we can look up digitally what the harness is and pin locations, and then since there's a blueprint on it, we can have a new harness made. So that's all stored, that data stored. So When we go on here and we're changing from the quick drive Lenco combination into the Mark Mickey 400 turbo scenario right now, it's just what we call the transmission harness. So we just simply unplug the quick drive harness and we put in the Mark Mickey harness, and we go back and forth, because now the car, if you look back in here, is now tabbed out for both the quick drive and the 400 turbo. So there's some bracketry that's universal to do this, to pull us out. This is titanium, and I've already showed you a safety loop earlier that sits in here and stuff. So you'll see the slides for it to remove the transmission when you want to pull the torque converter and service that. You can slide it back, and there's a slide made for it. So pretty cool stuff. You know, as I've been talking about the titanium treatment and the reversion, or the new version of some of the ideas that we've done, changes. Ultimately, our goal is to make the car stronger and lighter and more serviceable. And throughout that thing, we've always been collecting out what the old artifacts would be, and actually weighing them and figuring out, and by re-engineering it, what we could do for our weight savings. And doing this game here, every pound literally is a huge thing, and everybody understands that. But we really tried hard on this car, and we've always tried hard on it, but really pulling back and keeping it structured. Then let me just say one more thing. Driving a car for 5 seconds at a time, the ingenuity of something is a lot different than a car driving 5 seconds at a time, then driving several miles of racetrack and getting that kind of seat time with it. So it's different, you know. The functionality of the hood needs to be stronger. I don't have a 20-pound front end on it, you know, it's probably 80 pounds. And it's those things that just keep adding on weight to this thing. Another thing that we're married to, unfortunately, is this driveline. It's like built like a bulldozer. So we have an extra large power plant, we have extra large turbochargers, we have an extra large rear end, and when you put those three things together, the whole drive shaft and the whole driveline scenario has to be made for it. So everything gets bigger, bulkier, and heavier, and you have to try extra hard to try to keep the weight out of it. With all that said, we do have some projections that we feel that it'll be at least 131 pounds and maybe as much as like 145 pounds lighter when we go back to the track than the last time. And then Ed Thornton does the majority of the driving in this. If Ed's diet program is still working, we should probably be able to carve off another 300 pounds out of this thing. So keep going, Ed. I hope you haven't eaten for the last 6 months, and maybe we can make this hot rod go a little faster. Now, with all this said, the next time you maybe see a video, I mean, obviously we're going to make a little mini series of this thing, but the next big development would be is firing the car up, getting it ready to go, and then putting on the rollers, where we're going to do some cylinder pressure testing and actually tuning this thing. So stay tuned and watch for that too, because that's going to be a big thing in the next month or two that we're going to be doing over the winter months. So thank you.